Yep.
Your first deal, I call it the stupid tax, but when you start out and you're new, you're the dumbest you will ever be at what you're doing. You with no experience, I was like, this is the opportunity we have. Is it the one that we want? Kind of.
Well, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Richer Geek Podcast. I am happy to announce Christian Osgood in today's episode. Christian is a dynamic figure in the world of real estate investment. Does that sound familiar, people? He's renowned for his innovative strategies and commitment to empowering others. As the host of Multifamily Strategy Podcast and YouTube channel, Christian shares his wealth of knowledge and experience, inspiring countless individuals to achieve financial independence through multifamily ownership. This guy's amassed over 300 rentals in a little over 3 years. So that's pretty good. We'll talk about how he did that and the secrets. And he actually fulfilled his goal of retiring his wife from teaching. I think that's all one of our goals. And he ended up building his dream home. Today, he works alongside his wife, Danny, as they passionately build their companies, Multifamily Strategy, Kensho Property Management, and Apex Property Management. How you doing, Christian?
I'm doing well. Also realizing I need Chat GPT to update my bio here at some point. So seller financed Kensho not all that long ago and started a new PM as I moved to Texas. I did not want to own a property management company in Washington State and live in Dallas. That would have been the opposite of freedom.
It would have been. And but now you live in Texas.
Yes.
The big D, which we all like and love.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Possibly a new head coach this year. Well,
Yep.
will be a new head coach, not possibly, but we don't know who it is.
Sadly,
yeah.
I was gonna say I can't get behind the Dallas Cowboys yet. I tried and tried. I've grown up not liking them. I moved here and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna accept.
No.
We're Cowboys fans now, and I turned it on for like 6 minutes. I'm like, nope, can't do it. Can't do it. It's gonna take me a few years.
Yeah, well, I don't care. Yeah, no. I'm not a big D fan at all.
Dallas has horrible fans. The fans for Dallas are like the worst fans in the NFL, and I have to put up with them now. But that's okay. I love everything else about Texas: the weather, the food, the people, the business taxes, all of it better.
Well, they are pro-business, which is why we do stuff in Texas and Arizona and other free states. So it's so. Talk to us a little bit about what got you started in real estate investing and how you kind of mindset to where you're at now.
Well, unlike 99.9% of people who start podcasts with, well, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I didn't. I started with Dave Ramsey's. My dad gave me the Save Your Way to Financial Freedom model, as did my mentor in high school at the time. So I did to go to college, get a scalable job, scale a career, go from one job to another. Went through sales, worked for the CoStar Group on land.com originally. So marketing farms and ranches, moved into their core product, worked in apartments.com, LoopNet, but bounced around that company. Got my income to like $250,000 a year, and that's about as far as I got my career. The whole time, the goal was to invest in real estate. It was earn money, buy a house, buy assets. The very, very Dave Ramsey method.
Yep.
So bought my house. Then I bought a duplex. Bought it conventionally. Nothing crazy. Cash flowed about $1,000 a month. It was a good deal. Spent a long time trying to find a deal that looked okay, and bought a deal that was absolutely okay. That was the last of my money. Then I found another duplex in a town called Moses Lake. Didn't have any money. Reached out. It needed a lot of renovation. So I got a loan, 101% loan to value, to renovate it. I had to go bring in some additional capital to actually do the renovations, but 100% financed the acquisition, renovated the property, had a successful flip of that property, and was sitting on about $100,000. During that time, I was like, wait a second, I bought 4 units in 8 years doing this method. Got to a point where my income from my portfolio paid for the $2,000 mortgage on my tiny house in the Seattle area. Bought it back when interest rates were like 2.99%. So if that interest rate that price sounds low, yeah, $2,000 a month is what you get when money's basically free. 8 years. My real estate's paying for my real estate. I think that's a great place for a lot of people. That's a cool thing to do in your mid-20s. It's definitely not financial freedom. And so I was looking at, do I work another 8 years to buy another 2 3 duplexes. I mean, you got some skills, you make a little bit more money, so maybe I can buy 8 more units in the next 8 years. But that wasn't really inspiring to me. Around that time, we had just got through 2020. So my wife's teaching kindergartners in an impoverished area of Seattle online. It was in an area with a lot of Somalian refugees at the time. So you have a lot of families who English is not their first language. There's 4 or 5 kids in the house. Both parents work or they have a single parent family. And she's teaching kindergartners over Zoom. If you can imagine how fun that was, it was not.
Mm.
She comes back and almost immediately gets pushed down on the playground by a very large kindergartner, broke her back, lower back, displaced her hips. And the school decided not to report it and tried to cover it up unfortunately, as a race issue. This was right when that was like the heart of a lot of that. So we had a change of goals. We went from, hey, earning money is great and buying a few rentals is fine, to I just left my job to pursue full-time real estate, and now I need to retire my wife in less than 2 years. If you're looking at the correct vehicle to your goals, duplexes are not the correct vehicle to retire your wife in like 2 years or less. If your goal is immediate financial freedom, you do have to scale up and just roll a larger set of dice. So the next deal I did, on market for 13 years, 38 unit building, right next to the duplex that I just bought. $2 million price. They were open to seller financing. It had gone out of contract every time it went under contract, so I knew there was something wrong with it. But $2 million for 38 units in Washington State is insane. I went there and immediately figured out why no one had bought it. There were some drug problems at the property in 2 of the units. There was a homeless camp on the back of the property who was stealing electricity. And the roof on one of the 4 buildings was bad. And one of their septic tanks was bad. 8 septic tanks. That campus had a bunch of problems. A lot of people weren't paying rent. It was bringing like $7,000. People will tell you it's impossible to have a negative cap rate. It's not. If your operating expenses are higher than your income, your cap rate is technically negative. So buying it for $2 million at, we got 4% interest seller finance, it would have still been like a -1 cap deal. That being said, there's a lot of people there who weren't paying. So we came in, me and one partner from the office, didn't bring any money, just the 2 of us found the deal. Came in, never raised capital before, made the decision, okay, no one wants to buy this deal because the people who have $2 million to put on this, you need to buy it in cash or seller finance. The bank is never going to lend on this.
Right.
So the people who would buy this either have $2 million and do not want this big of a project, or they buy smaller buildings, and this is just, it was, the whole thing was, it's too much project for anyone who could afford to buy this thing, except for 2 guys who are really, really hungry, who can do the project, be on site, and see it through. So it was the perfect deal. 2 weeks into being under contract, we talked to the neighbors next door. They were about to develop 108 homes on the lot behind us. They also wanted the homeless camp gone. They agreed to build us a wall. So we have this beautiful brick wall all the way around it. They cleared the homeless for us, so that was self-resolved. That was a huge piece of it. We came in, we raised enough money to do the initial renovations, not even close to get through the project. That was a mistake. But we raised our way through it. We came in. I asked we did 15% down, seller financed. I needed to find 300,000. We raised 350, which was not nearly enough, but at least got us started.
Yeah.
We got in, closed the deal, bought appliances, made a huge show of like bringing in all the new fridges, and they let all the tenants know, hey, we actually care. That alone, 10 tenants who were not paying started paying, because we actually fixed their units. We gave them working appliances. We fixed their toilets, the basics. As it started to cash flow, we fixed 1 unit at a time. Cash flow went up and up and up. We brought collections from $7,000 to $28,000. Got an appraisal, appraised for $4.1 million. Pulled the money out, bought out the partners. That one deal paid us $350,000 and bought out all of the partners. The real estate bought the real estate. No money left our pocket. That was better than a perfect BRRRR. It was super hard. Like that was a rough project. We actually spent like 2 weeks living in the building with our druggy tenants. Like it was wild when we got it done. But we took a class F to a class C plus building. And then we took that money, instead of paying ourselves, we reinvested back in the building, redid the siding, the windows, the roof, finished the rest of the units, brought it to $32,000 a month. The project got better and better. It's a great asset, but that was the first deal where on paper I did one deal and became a millionaire on paper.
Yeah. Right.
I was like, holy crap! Why was I buying duplexes? This is the best thing ever. 2 weeks after we closed that, we also did a seller finance sixplex and a sevenplex. Later in the year, I took the money because I still had my original 100,000. I never spent it. When I sold that duplex, I bought into a 12plex, which then 12. We were doing cash out refis. We were doing more seller finance contracts, and yeah, somehow worked the same thing. Worked in a blue state. Worked in Texas in a red state. I did the same thing down here. I got about 150 in Washington, 150 in Texas, and now I'm down here doing the same thing the same way.
Yeah,
that's the story of Christian. Whole origin story right there.
That is the success story that a lot of our listeners want to hear. They think, Mike, you're one in a million. You did the same. It's like, oh my God, because what I'm doing is almost smiling. Is I had that exact same one of the exact same starts. Mine was a 28 unit that. Luckily, here in Arizona, I was allowed to carry my gun on the side. On a holster on the side because I was like, I need to. It's that type of property, and it's just it. You have to have that resolve because that when I did that project, it almost broke me. It was like I evicted instead of those paying. I had to evict I think 18 out of the 28, and it was seller financing.
Yep.
And I had the guy come up to me, says, I own this complex. This is mine. As he had his two caddies, saying that he ran it. So a lot of people's like, oh my God, how do you do that? And some of the resolve, was it just that I know that real estate is it, and that pushed you through to go overcome all these challenges because it's just like, what? I believe in myself, and I know that it'll turn around.
I was just looking at the time. I think the number one thing is that my goal was very specific and measurable. It was like I've set this one. You can pull this directly from Dave Ramsey. His goal setting thing is like the formula. But you come in, you set a specific target that has a specific cost and a specific set of time. I'm like, okay, I got 2 years to pull off this goal. Ideally, we'll do it faster. I retired my wife from teaching in 11 months too, which was crazy. But we came through and went, okay. I believe that real estate is the path to do this. This is what I've dedicated my last 5 years to learning. So it's kind of time to either do it or don't do it. I believe in multifamily. I know I need to do bigger deals. I have an opportunity. I do not see a universe where we cannot get this thing worth $3 million. We're buying for 2. We can get it to 3. Now there's reason to believe we can go above that, but super conservatively, I was like, I think we have a deal with $1 million of upside.
Yep.
And every way I can cut it, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get it there. My business partner at the time, Cody, he was 21. He has 30 other units in that town, all seller financed. One of them was very, very, very heavy reno. So I'm like, okay, I've renovated a duplex in this town. Does not qualify me for a 38plex. He's renovated, parts of a 30 unit complex, but he manages all of them himself. I'm like, we have between the two super young 20-year-olds, we have at least enough experience to where we can sit on this campus, and I will physically camp here until this thing is making enough money because it can and should be worth this much money. The deferred maintenance is there for sure, but it's not so bad that it can't be fixed. It's one bad roof. It's one bad septic that just needs to be pumped more often. It's not actually broken yet. It just has a failed drain field. Yep. So I'm like, the problems are surmountable. They're super hard, but they're surmountable. I think for most of us, if you look at a deal and you're like, I believe in every fiber of my being that there's at least $1 million here.
Mm-hmm.
And the most you've ever been able to earn grinding on your 9 to 5 is $250,000 before tax.
Yeah.
I'm like, I will move forward. If I just lived in a tent outside this property and made this thing work, I will make 5 times what I've made. I will get 5 years of working back. I think most of us can make that happen. It wasn't actually that big of a leap. I'm like, we are young and dedicated enough where this deal would put us on the map. And it's going to unlock a whole bunch of other opportunity. Because if we're going to pull this one off, We can do that now. As I've learned, I see why people didn't buy this because I've made more money on deals that were astronomically easier. The reason that people don't do this is because I should have come in at like $1,500,000 for this. Is the reason that you don't do that. But I wouldn't have had this deal, and I wouldn't have learned what we learned. And
Yep.
your first deal, I call it the stupid tax. But when you start out and you're new, you're the dumbest you will ever be at what you're doing. With no experience, I was like, this is the opportunity we have. Is it the one that we want? Kind of. I'd love for it to be easier, but it's the opportunity we have. So we closed on it, and I think that's the difference between people who make a lot of money in multifamily and people who don't. Is do you close on the opportunities in front of you or do you not? There's some people who just see things, they analyze them forever, and they just don't write the offer. That's the
Analysis
main thing.
paralysis.
Yeah. If you can just
Analysis.
write the offer and get it accepted, you're still barely committed, right? You have refundable earnest money. But that seems to be the part people get stuck. That's like, they're like, I think I have a deal, but I didn't write the offer. And then I looked back 10 years later and why didn't I buy that deal? I'm like, I didn't want that to be me. I wanted to just buy a deal. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm broke and I have a house. There's only one thing I know that I can definitely do. I can get a job and buy a house. So my wife and I had that conversation. I'm like, if we lost everything on this personally guaranteed seller finance note,
Mhm.
if we lost everything, are we okay with this? And she's like, well, I mean, we met each other a few years ago. We didn't have any money. Now we have a house and a little bit of money. We can do that
Yeah.
again. That's fine. What's the actual cost of failure? It wasn't actually that high.
Curious about growing your wealth, you know the best opportunities aren't always the most obvious. That's why we've partnered with Bob Bernatas of Franchise with Bob. He specializes in helping investors like you leverage franchising, an overlooked but highly profitable way to create semi-passive income. And for a limited time, Bob is giving our listeners access to his course on franchising investing for free. Inside, you'll learn how to evaluate franchises, minimize risk, and maximize returns. This course is normally priced at $499. Don't let this pass you by. Go to edu.franchisewithbob.com/RG and get your free course today. Yeah, and it's great information, ladies and gentlemen, is sticking with it and the self-belief. And, I talk to a lot of people that's, one more seminar and I'm ready to jump in. One more of this, it's like, oh my God, you're just not doing it. And, something that I really like is that you're using alternative methods in order to buy these. So how do you find people out there? It's like going, seller financing still works in today's market, and things like that. It's like, how do you go out and find someone to do seller financing?
Well, I love the question. As you know, like seller financing is just always one of the options on the table, right? Seller financing's been around since before the banks. Like that's what you used to do, right?
Yep.
I don't have the cash right now, then give it to me in payments and with interest. That's it's in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is not a new concept. Seller financing is a thing that's always on the table. I found for low down seller financing, it's typically done when people know, like, and trust you. If someone doesn't know you at all, the down payment goes up. Traditionally, that's why I see. Unless someone's in like a lot of trouble and you're fixing a major problem, they're gonna, then there's pressure. But 9 times out of 10 for me, I have found that not asking people to sell their properties, find the people who are ahead of you, like you, for example, and instead of saying, "Hey, would you sell me your portfolio?" being like, "How do I take this guy out to coffee?" Like, know a lot of things. You know a lot that I don't know yet. I'm imagining, as I'm telling some of my story, you're probably already thinking of some of the things that you know that I haven't experienced yet. You're like, oh, okay. You've done several phases past where I'm at today. So when you're looking at how would I move forward, there are people who have done what you want to do. Unless you're Elon Musk trying to get to Mars or something, like landing a rocket again, no one's done that. But for 99.999% of things, everyone has done the thing that you want to do. Your goal is not that unique, especially in real estate. It's been done. So meet the people in your market who have done the thing that you want to do. Take them out to coffee. I'm in Texas now, so we can do barbecue. But spend the time not asking them to buy their buildings. Just spend their time talking about real estate. How did they do what they did? That built a lot of relationships. That also gave me the connection to every lender, every partner, every lawyer that I use. It's all, I call the guy who's already done it in my area and said, who have you, like, they've already gone through the hard part. And
Yep.
what I found is a lot of these people, and I've got seller financing for people in their early 30s. So generally speaking, the people ahead of you have been playing the game longer. So
Mhm.
you meet with a lot of people. I'm 33 today. You meet with a lot of people who are 50 plus. They've been playing the game longer than you. They know everything that you need to know. And generally speaking, I don't know if this is true for you, but I seem to see this as a trend. Their friends and family don't really care too much about the real estate and they don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They usually like to talk about real estate. It's not actually that hard to get someone to open up about how they built their awesome business that gave them freedom that no one listens to them talk about. And so I've done a lot of meetings. You hop in a truck, you drive around, they show you the portfolio, you get coffee, you ask good questions about how they structured them, you give them some of your pieces where you're stuck. I'm going to
Hmm.
add one thing to this that everyone tries to do. I don't know where this trend came from. It's probably a popular book, but it's all that like lead with value thing where I get young people all the time who are like, "How can I offer you value?" I'm like, first of all, if I have to define the value that you give me, you're already annoying. Um, but coming in, understanding, at least for me, I don't have any value here. You're ahead of me. I'm here just asking for you to share your knowledge. I found there's a ton of people who are willing to actually just sit down and freely offer knowledge, and
Yeah.
they appreciate that you listen to them. And as the relationship grows, the value comes later. There's something that comes up that you can do for them, or a relationship that you end up with further in the game. It does come around, but like I, it feels like a roundabout way. But I have never in my career asked anyone to sell a building before. I've still not done it. It has always been the other party's idea. A broker has come to me or an owner has come to me and they said, "Hey, I have a friend who is selling a property. It is too small for me. It is perfect for what you are trying to do. I remember our meeting. I remember you're trying to retire your wife. We have an actual personal connection now." And they're like, I called them. They know you don't have a lot of money. They wanted 25% down. They'll do 15 because I called them. You should do this deal. And then you look at the deal, you do your own underwriting. And then after you close the deal, you go back to them and you thank them for setting up the deal. It's the part people forget.
Yeah.
And rinse and repeat. I've done a lot of repeat transactions with people
Yeah.
because they own a lot of real estate, their friends own a lot of real estate. You move from being an outsider to an insider. That's how you get seller financing.
Hmm. Yeah. And it works the same with hotels and ladies and gentlemen, what is something that Christian keeps saying over and over and over again? Something I've beat the dead horse with is the networking, talking to people, getting to know them. How did we get in from multifamily to hotels? Because I knew people. It's because you're sitting there and say, like, I don't know anything about this type of asset class. What am I going to do? I'm going to learn. So no matter how successful you are, ladies and gentlemen, get that coach, get that mentor, take people out to get a Shiner Bock and a barbecue or at least coffee, and that's how it works. It's no matter what you're doing, ladies and gentlemen, it's getting it. There's RIAs, which is the real estate actions. There's all these courses out here in Arizona. Is ASRIA. Dallas has another RIA group. It's getting to know people that do the same things. And you're right. I go out on the circuit. I teach. I love, especially when you're actually wanting to learn and not wasting my time. That's the one thing
Yeah.
that when people sit there and say, "Hey, can I take you out to coffee?" And I'm like going, you know,
There's a 50-50. This is going to
man,
be horrible.
you know, you know, I can tell usually by how they write the email or send me the voicemail. Um, what are some of the mistakes? Man, I have made some mistakes. I got started, ladies and gentlemen. I call it PG, pre-Google days. Um, I didn't know what I didn't know. There's really no excuse now. I mean, you have this podcast, you have Christian's podcast, you've got Google, you have all this information. What can you tell us, Christian, some of the costly mistakes you made um, buying and operating all these units that you sit there and it's like, man, it's like, ladies and gentlemen, don't do this.
Okay, so this is gonna be fun because you switched into hospitality. I did a hospitality project, and that was the biggest mistake I made. And the reason I made it is it was too early in my multifamily career for me to diversify my focus.
Yeah.
You make a lot of money, and this is consider like I had the information for this too. This isn't groundbreaking stuff. Focusing on the main thing and not getting shiny object syndrome is like one of the main things that tank entrepreneurs. People know this. I identified myself incorrectly as a creative financed real estate guy. So I went, okay, I'm buying a resort, 12 acres, 20 cabins. I'm buying a multifamily building. It's real estate. Both were seller financed. I was like, this is right in my wheelhouse. They are completely different businesses. I mean, unbelievably dissimilar.
Yep.
Hospitality is much more active. And if you buy a smaller resort, I mean, 20 cabins isn't huge.
Mhm.
You always have an active component. You need to make a lot of money before you can hire a staff to actually make that deal make sense. Most hospitality people will either one do crazy destination places that are like very unique, high value,
Mhm.
or you go 60 unit plus,
Yep.
period. The smaller than that and getting efficiencies in place cost effectively is almost impossible. Or you need to own a ton of them. You can own a ton of boutique things and then take your
Sure.
systems. But you have to have a way, like a systematic way to systematize things and cut your costs because running 20 units by itself in the middle of nowhere at a beautiful summer location, really hard to do. The deal structure that we did there. So I've found you can buy unlimited rentals if and only if everything that you buy cash flows day one on long-term fixed rate debt. If I buy it and it pays me in the beginning and I have a long term with no changes to it,
Yep.
it is very hard for me to lose it.
Yeah.
So if I keep buying it, my income goes up every time. I can just go buy more stuff. That is the basis of my multifamily thesis.
Yep.
Always increase your income at acquisition. You will never lose it if it's long-term fixed rate debt.
Yeah.
I define that as 7 years or greater, ideally 10 or more. And most of my seller finance notes are 10, 15, or 30 years. I actually have long-term seller finance debt.
Mhm.
When you put these things together, you can hold them. On the resort, we did long-term debt, 4.5% interest. We did not know how to underwrite that. So, problem number one, there were two sets of books. We were provided bank statements for one. A competent underwriter of hospitality could have looked at that and said, payroll is too low. They're paying people
Yeah.
under the table somewhere else. I know I could see that in 25 seconds now if you gave me a bank statement.
Yeah.
Did not see it because expenses matched bank statements. That was how I knew to underwrite multifamily. I was like, of course this is right. No, they had a business side and they hid some stuff in there.
Mhm.
Two, assuming that you know how to market hospitality, totally different job. I took professionals in multifamily and put them there. Long story short, I also did a thing where I did a debt pay down. So at the end of every year, I pay down $250,000 principal. So it's low interest. It's interest only through the year, which was genius because that actually helps normalize the up and down. So I have
Yeah.
low recurring cost. And then at the end of summer, when we've just retained the most amount of money, we have the principal due. So it was a creative way to do it. The problem is it builds equity really fast. You pay down this thing like crazy. It doesn't cash flow.
Yeah.
I thought it could make more, but we had no proof of concept to know that it would make more. We did better than the prior owners did, but we didn't make anywhere near where we had originally projected. And so what ended up happening is I had a resort that made a whole bunch of money. And then I paid it all off in principal, and I could never do any repairs or improvements or marketing to the resorts. I had a perpetually broke LLC that needed contributions that builds a ton of net worth and was a pain in the ass in my first year of multifamily. So I had to scale my portfolio to build more cash flow to support the recurring down payments for the stupid hospitality. That is what you call being an idiot. It is also the downside of seller financing and creative finance. We got too creative and you get what you sign for. We
Yeah.
negotiated ourselves into a stupid debt structure that made us on paper worth we have millions of dollars net worth in it now. We've paid off like a ton of this resort. And I don't like running it. And there's like no buyer for a resort, a beautiful resort in the middle of nowhere, Washington.
Yeah.
I'm like, shoot, all the value is in the debt and the debt's not transferable. So I have this 4.5% interest rate. I'm like, no one will buy it because I slightly overpaid and I got amazing long-term low interest terms. All the values in the terms that aren't transferable. I have a thing I couldn't get out of if I wanted to. I have
Yeah.
to run a resort now. There's no choice.
Mm.
Perform or die. That was dumb. That was the dumbest thing that I did in my career. I'm grateful that we scaled through it in the multifamily. My
Yeah.
multifamily spits off more than enough to support it now. There are many days where I sit down and I'm like, I want to build this huge pool in my backyard. I'm like, we could have done that 15 times over if I just didn't do that one deal and dump all the money into that. So that was my lesson. Make the main thing the main thing. I lost a lot of cash on that at the growth phase where
Mhm.
income and cash is most valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. And, ladies and gentlemen, what's the moral of this story is don't switch asset classes unless you partner with someone that has decades of experience in that asset class. And that goes if you're going from fix and flips to single family, even to multi, there's enough difference. But going from multi to hospitality, it's zero things alike. So
To
yes,
those
that's why.
listening, by the way, that is the solution. I have my partner is willing to be bought out. I'm like, if I added in now the person who has the experience, you
Yeah,
can go back. And the beautiful thing about contracts, anything can be renegotiated.
that's right.
That's the great thing about anything in writing. So I'm like, that is actually the fix that we're pursuing right now. Is I'm like, okay, we've come a long way from where we started. If someone just bought out a partner and
Hmm.
swapped in, I can still get that experienced operator, and that is what I'm actually actively seeking now. Is like, would someone who loves hospitality, who understands deeply the marketing of this,
Yeah.
and can come in and just assume the partner's obligations, who does not want to keep paying for it? I'm like, if we swap players, it is technically a fixable thing. We could just re-engineer this to be the deal it always should have done, but you don't want to put yourself in that position, right? You're like, oh, now I have X and Y that have to be executed before it's awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's awful. It soured me on hospitality completely. I'm like, I will
Yeah,
never
well,
run
we're
this.
we're both laughing because we're both been there, done that, and things like that. Yeah, and you learn from it.
I'm sure you've shared this on your podcast, but if I could turn it around for you, you've been in the game a lot longer. What was your biggest mistake that you made? I want to learn from you.
Yeah. Well, in hospitality, it was our one of I think it was my third deal. You understand, even if it's a franchise and has a lot of keys,
Mm.
you do have to look at that payroll. I never looked at some of these are mom and pop owned. What I didn't realize is that the dad was the GM, the mom was running all the hospitality, the kids were running the front desk, the cousins were doing the housekeeping, and so that payroll was extremely low. It's kind of similar to what
We
you were saying.
so we both got slapped by not underwriting payroll correctly.
Yeah, so it's like going, oh, okay, wow, that's pretty good payroll. Again, I
Now we
was naive.
know.
Now I know that I look at all the last names of the people on the payroll.
So that's why I got a smirk when I mentioned the payroll. This
That's
makes
why I
sense
got
now.
this. That's the smirk when you mention payroll. I'm like, going, yeah, yeah, we've all been there. We've all done that. And then something that you look at is most of my hotels are franchise.
Yeah.
It's knowing if that franchise works in that area or that
Oh, yeah, yeah,
type
yeah.
of hotel. You don't put a high-end Marriott in Timbuktu
Nope.
because people can't afford it. Truck drivers that are coming through there aren't going to stay that. What do you want? You want a Motel 6 or a Quality Inn or something like that. Just free breakfast, free internet, so they can get a good night's sleep and go. So you have to make sure that that asset is there. And then the third thing, really quick, is the what we call drivers. What you would look at in your Washington property. Why do people stay there? Why do they want? What drives people to want to go to that spot? And we require 2 to 3 drivers. In case one goes away, you've got two other reasons why people stay there. So we learned really quick that you can't have a hotel next to a university if COVID hits and no one's going to that school. So it's
Now, my individual separated cabins in the middle of nowhere would do amazing in COVID. That would be probably
yes,
the perfect retreat. Get out
the
of the
perfect
woods, work
getaway
from here.
if they were allowed to even go there. And so yes, it's those types of things.
Yeah.
Um, what can you tell people that are listening? They want to be like you. They want to get started owning. They've watched some HGTV episodes and think that they know it all when they don't. But what can you tell our listeners if they want to get started? What's the first step?
if you want to get started, the first step is getting around people who are doing what you want to do. I think we both said it on this. Like it's
Yeah.
becoming an insider. It's going to your local RIA or a local meetup. There's Washington State. When I got started, there was like three groups that are just fantastic. One in
Mm.
Seattle, one in Tacoma. My buddy Jan, he's become a really good friend, the owner of that group. WARI in Washington, Washington State Real Estate Investing. It's this huge Facebook group. They host monthly events. Everyone who's everyone attends that. Like you can get connected with massive, massive players, people on the come up. It's you get around people playing the game. Get comfortable with underwriting a deal is number two. Like you need to when you see an opportunity, you need to know it's an opportunity. Otherwise, you can't
Yep.
do jack.
Yep.
If you do those two things, if you get around people playing the game and you get confident, I can look at a deal and I can underwrite it to the point where I'm comfortable putting in an offer. I buy mid-sized multifamily. Moving forward 100 units a year without syndicating, without doing any sort of crazy, I could do more, but it takes like three transactions. I'm not actually even transacting that often. I'm doing two, three deals a year, moving over forward 100 units at a time. You will outpace almost everyone in the industry. You'll be a top one percenter if all you did was I know I'm looking at an opportunity and I can write it up. I'm buying big enough deals and I'm around the people who are doing them. If you do that, you're pretty much there.
Yep. So what are you doing now, Christian? Any type of syndications, any type of things, anything for our listeners to get involved in? Or are you just still
I'm
doing
actually
it yourself?
looking, yeah, actually looking at putting together the first syndication. I
Yeah.
love JVs,
Yeah.
and those work as long as you don't have too many members. Everyone has to have an active role, otherwise you're creating a security, and like good luck with that lawsuit if you screw that up. Be really careful if you're doing a JV. Be super careful. Know what you're doing. I've always done JVs, partners with assigned roles. I'm doing a deal. It's going to be a 1,650,000 raise, $6.4 million, 76 units, 3 bed, 2.5 bath, 2 story. It's gorgeous. Doing a really fun project. This will be my first time syndicating.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for two reasons. One, I want to open it up to more people. I think I could do it with two partners, but it just felt like the right deal to learn something new. I've never done or executed on the deal structure. We've done seller financing, contracts. I don't like subject to, but I've done it as a
Mhm.
portion of one acquisition where we have a clause that says if this gets called, the
Yeah.
prior owner has to pay it off and then seller finance it to us. So I've done
Yeah.
it all though. I've done so many different methods of acquisition. I haven't done the syndication. So I'm like, you know what? We're gonna form a 503. I think we're gonna do
B.
503B.
Oh, B.
And I think I'm gonna do B. So I can't actually solicit for it. So this is not a solicitation for funds.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. We are not talking about the project itself, ladies and gentlemen.
But looking to probably doing a 503B on that one as my first syndication just because of the group and community that we have.
Yeah.
Other than that, closing a lot of deals in Texas. I found this town, Stephenville, Texas, where we just do deal after deal after deal. Beautiful little college town, multiple, just like hospitality, multiple drivers. Dairy
Yep.
industry's been there forever. They have a massively growing college that just went Division 1. Development is coming in on every block. They just put the area's Amazon warehouse is like 95% built. But you look at a town like that and you're like, buildings are going up, and then you drive there and you're like, I could live here. It is immaculate. That type of market. No, that's what I'm focused on. We're growing in and around Stephenville, Texas, Waco, Texas,
Yeah.
taking out deals. Started the PM company because we're doing so much Section 8 and LIHTC. I like to do that with my own team, my own way. I'm a high control person, so we're rolling out PM third party. We opened up this year actually.
Yeah. Um, is there anything, before I let you go, that I have not hit on that you'd like to uh, tell our listeners? Anything that I might have missed?
You know what? I try to mention this on every podcast because it's the silliest thing, and it is the one thing that I needed to hear when I was getting started.
Yeah.
You're not a real estate investor until you buy a piece of real estate. And that's all you have to do to be an investor. I almost everyone that I meet, and I was super guilty of this for 8 years. We go from first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, high school, maybe college, first, second, third job to qualify to get somewhere. We're just like we're trained to do it. You don't have to become a real estate agent to
Mhm.
buy real estate. You don't need to be a property manager. You don't have to work at the CoStar Group for 4 years. You need to learn how to buy a piece of real estate, and that doesn't take very long. You can learn it in If you just sat down and like went for it, you could be really, really, really sharp at buying a piece of real estate in 30 days.
Yeah.
You need experience. You're not going to be an expert, but you can learn everything that you need to learn to close your first deal in 30 days. So if your goal is to be an investor, there's only one way to do it. Cut all the other stuff out. Don't add steps. Buy a piece of real estate.
Yeah, there you go. Christian, how can people get a hold of you?
People can follow me on Instagram at Christian Osgood. Fortunately, my name is unique enough where I actually get my own name on Instagram. Super convenient. You can also check out my YouTube channel. We're blessed. I finally got the plaque. So finally over 100,000 subs. So Multifamily Strategy on YouTube. I took a little over 2,000 videos to get there. So if you guys are wondering, that's terrible. That means I grinded through a lot of being really bad to get any good at that. We share a lot of information, and it's somewhere you can follow the journey. I actually did start with very little money. I left a job and with no income. Documented. It's the one thing I did right. I documented the entire journey, all of it in one place. So you can watch me go from a basement where I say, I'm going to close on this 38 unit building and I'm going to become an investor to actually doing it till now. You can watch like before I owned real estate to where we are today. And it's free. So if you guys want to learn how it happened and see like the full story, check it out there on YouTube.
Yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Again, no excuses. Go out and buy it and use resources like Christian's YouTube channel to learn and get involved in real estate investing, because that is the way of the future. God's not making any more real estate, ladies and gentlemen. So we might as well own some of it. Christian, thank you so much for coming on the Richer Geek Podcast. Have a wonderful night.
You do the same.